The ANC in Gauteng failed to retain the key metros. The party lost Ekurhuleni, Joburg, as well as Tshwane and Mogale City, all to the DA after smaller parties voted with the opposition. For reaction on this, I'm joined by Mr. Jacob Khawe, the ANC's Gauteng Secretary. Babu Khawe, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time on the Daytime Update. How is the ANC in Gauteng dealing with this loss of support and the loss of the metros? What do you attribute these drastic losses to?
Good day to you and the viewers. We have taken a fall and we are compelled to rise immediately and dust ourselves and focus on the agenda of saving our people. This has been a bad period for us, and perhaps what we would call the last waking up call that the voters do determine what they want in their municipalities. And these results are a demonstration that there is a voice that was not listened to in the past. So we've got to dust ourselves and ask ourselves basic questions of what happened and what do we do moving forward.
So, Babu Khawe, this is not the first time that this has happened where the ANC has lost a lot of support. It's not the first time that as the ANC you say you're going to go back to the drawing board and start serving your people. There were warnings before this, and what the ANC is saying now, not only in Gauteng but nationwide, is exactly what was said in 2016, and when the decline of votes for the ANC actually started happening. So what is going to make this different? How are you going to do that? And is this not a little too little, too late?
It is a bit painful to lose 3 metros. And you'll remember that in 2016, we emerged as the majority, but the coalition of the DA and EFF would have collapsed us in Johannesburg and in Tshwane. But at this stage, it was not only the coalition, it was also the voter turnout, that the voters in the province chose not to go and vote and rather keep their vote and abstain. So this is a bit clear indication better than 2016. 2016 we were dealing with a coalition of those who stand against any progressive programs of the ANC. But this time, it is also a voter who have made their voice to be heard by not going to vote. If you look at the numbers, we still got the majority of votes, but we also think that the majority of people who didn't turn up at all are those who ordinarily would have voted for ANC. And therefore, our strategy and our campaign and our focus should be in ensuring that we do attend to the concerns, particularly of those who didn't vote, and service those who voted us in the wards, because across the province, there is no organization that has majority wards than the ANC.
Babu Khawe, I'd like us to take a look at some of these tweets that were given by Minister Fikile Mbalula, where he talks, first of all, about Johannesburg. He says, "We won Joburg without outright majority, but they decided to give Joburg to the DA. The people of Joburg voted for the ANC, not the DA, but we accept the coalition's agreement. It did not favor us." There's another one by Fikile Mbalula that says, "We didn't lose elections. We lost to coalitions because of our failure to garner outright majority to govern." Mr. Khawe, this really does speak to pretty much what you are saying, the fact that it's the coalitions and the voters. But is the ANC really getting to the heart of what the problem is? Because if you're still thinking that you won the elections, that you still got the largest number of votes, does that not somehow really prevent you from getting to the heart of what this period is saying to the ANC, or what the voters are saying to the ANC? Because if in the back of your mind you're still saying, well, we got the largest number of votes, but if it wasn't for the coalitions and it wasn't for the voters who didn't turn out, we would still be where we are. Does that not rob you of an opportunity to really get to the heart of what is happening here?
We did in the National Executive Committee and in the PC of Gauteng make a reflection on what could be the reason, and we came to a conclusion that it's a multiplication of factors. One of the biggest challenges that we have as an organization is to go back to the diagnosis report that we did. We at times behave like a patient who goes to a doctor and the doctor says, change behavior and do this and this, and still behave the same. Our own diagnosis report did show that there is concern by all South Africans that we're not really dealing with corruption in a manner that demonstrates pure commitment in that respect. Secondly, the diagnosis report did tell us about the lack of continuous engagement with communities. And this is a demonstration now that our communities were saying to us, we only see you when you want a vote. After that, we don't see you. The diagnosis report also spoke about governing as if we are not one organization between national, province, and local. Take for an example.
I'm going to ask you, Babu Khawe, my apology. I'm going to ask you if you could just hold that thought for us. We'll come back just after this break and continue our discussions on the diagnosis as well as the way forward. We're speaking to Mr. Jacob Khawe, the ANC Gauteng Secretary. When we return, we'll continue that conversation. We continue our conversation with the ANC Gauteng Secretary, Mr. Jacob Khawe, on the dismal performance of the African National Congress in Gauteng, losing all the metros due to the coalitions and how those discussions turned out. Mr. Khawe, you were talking to us about the reasons why you, as the ANC in general and also in Gauteng specifically, are finding yourselves here, and talking about the diagnostic report that was released that the ANC is governing as separate entities.
Yes, this is quite a disturbing factor because, take an example, just in a week of elections, you have water cut-offs where Rainwater argues with municipalities and nobody talks on behalf of the people. You had the electricity cut-offs in big townships, 3 days, full 3 days before, the elections. And we expect voters to wake up with excitement and energy to go and vote. You have a situation where between Gauteng and National we had long resolved on the intervening on the high cost of living. Included in that is the scrapping of e-tolls that as we speak today is not yet scrapped. We have a situation where province would have imposed Section 139 in other municipalities with no full financial support. These are some of the things that if we want to change, we've got to make sure that we govern as one, collectively, within the district model. The other thing that came from diagnosis was the infights and factionalism in the party. And you'd know that during the selection process of ward councillors, would have a behavior where some people would intimidate communities, threaten them, treat them badly, and you generally demotivate the voters on the day of elections. So all these things are the real reasons why we are declining.
Mr. Khawe, I'd like to point to this, Mr. Khawe, which really speaks to what you're saying. Here's a tweet by Uzinhle who says, "Losing Ekurhuleni hurts, I won't lie. I've shed a thug tear, but as an ANC member, I do not know how to defend the ANC anymore. The ANC has failed. The bad has outweighed the good. People are just tired, man. It's unfortunate that this revolt against the ANC will benefit the DA." Zinhle here, you can hear, is an ardent member of the African National Congress, but he's saying that, Zinhle can't defend you anymore. because you make promises that you haven't been keeping, and now the Democratic Alliance has literally won and gained control of the metro, specifically in Gauteng as well. So how are you going to ensure that you do actually prove yourselves once again when you actually no longer have the mayorships in some of the key metros?
It is unfortunate that in Ekurhuleni, we lost the election with a quite performing local government team. Very focused, dedicated. The financial records, Auditor General report demonstrate that. The economic outlook report shows the jobs created in Ekurhuleni, the approach on informal settlement. So you can see that at some point, the issues are not much about how did Ekurhuleni perform, but could be about how the ANC-led government across the country performed, and how does the ANC as a body treat its members and give its members like Zinhle confidence to stand and defend the party. Factionalism builds the feeling that Zinhle has, where you really think we're no longer an organization with principles, but rather an organization of self-serving. These are the things that we've got to deal with if we want Zinhle and other members of the ANC and society broadly to believe in our commitment. Where I stand, I still believe that if we were to follow the report and the resolutions we took in the conference, much would be better.
As we round up our discussion today, Mr. Khawe, here's a tweet by Dali Mpofu. His sentiments are that the once mighty ANC has just surrendered the capital city without putting up a fight. This is the beginning of the end. Your comments on that?
Abstaining is part of a democratic process where you see that there is a gang, not a coalition with principles, but a deal to embarrass you, a deal to present you as a loser. You've got to respect yourself as an organization and say, the voters of Tshwane voted us in majority in the wards. They are ready for us to serve them. And therefore, let's not give pleasure to those who stand to embarrass us. And Mr. Dali Mpofu is the champion of those who stand for that agenda. And surely he is disappointed that we opted to abstain in Tshwane.
We'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Mr. Khawe, we thank you so much for your time. That's Mr. Jacob Khawe. He is the Gauteng Secretary for the African National Congress.